The shrouds. The screen should have been quiet. Instead, it blinked. Elias Mercer stood alone in the control room beneath the cemetery, staring at the monitor with dry, burning eyes. The image showed a coffin buried 6 feet under clean California soil. Inside it lay his wife, Mara. Or at least, she should have been lying still. But the shroud moved. Not much. Just a slow tightening, like fabric pulled by a breath that should not exist. The white burial wrap clung closer to her shoulders, then loosened again. The motion was gentle, almost careful. Almost polite. Elias's heart hammered. "That's not possible," he whispered, though the room was empty. The shroud system had never done this before. The technology was simple on paper and terrifying in truth. A mesh of smart fibers wrapped around the deceased, filled with microscopic cameras and sensors. No pain. No damage. Just observation. A way to watch, to remember, to never fully say goodbye. Elias had built it after Mara died, telling himself it was for science. For closure. The monitor flickered again. The image zoomed on its own, centering on Mara's face beneath the thin fabric. The shroud tightened once more. The outline of her mouth pressed faintly against it, as if she were trying to speak. Elias stepped back, knocking into a metal desk. "Stop," he said louder now. His hands shook as he reached for the keyboard. "System override. End feed." The screen went black. For 1 second, relief washed over him. Then white text appeared on the dark screen. "Do you see me?" Elias froze. The letters faded. The screen stayed black. The hum of servers filled the room again, steady and normal, as if nothing had happened. Elias stood there, breathing hard, afraid to blink. Above him, the cemetery slept under moonlight. Perfect rows of headstones. Quiet. Peaceful. Nothing was supposed to move. The story did not begin here. It began months earlier, with silence. After Mara died, the house felt too big. Elias would wake up reaching for her, only to touch cold sheets. Friends brought food. People said kind things. But grief did not listen. It sat with him at night and followed him into his work. Elias was an engineer. He believed problems had answers if you looked hard enough. Death felt like a broken system. So he started designing something new. At first, it was just an idea scribbled in a notebook. A way to keep watch. A way to stay connected. When the first prototype worked, he cried, not because it was scary, but because it felt like he could see her again. When he shared the idea, people reacted fast. Some called it beautiful. Others called it sick. News shows argued. Churches protested. Tech companies offered money. Elias ignored them all. He told himself this was about love, not control. Soon more families signed up. Parents. Spouses. Children who were not ready to let go. The cemetery added underground fiber lines. Screens appeared in living rooms across the country. The dead were still dead, Elias insisted. The shrouds only watched. For a while, everything worked. Then the reports started. One family said the feed froze every night at the same time. Another said the image blurred when they spoke certain names. A groundskeeper found a grave disturbed, though the lock was untouched. Elias blamed software bugs. Interference. Human fear. But late at night, alone with the monitors, Elias noticed patterns. The feeds didn't glitch randomly. They reacted. When he spoke to Mara, the sensors spiked. When he stayed silent too long, the image darkened. It was as if the system was listening, not just to sound, but to want. Tonight was the first time it moved. Elias left the control room and climbed the steps to the surface. Cool air hit his face. The cemetery stretched out before him, quiet and still. He walked between the rows until he reached Mara's grave. The earth was smooth. Untouched. The headstone clean. "I'm here," he said softly, feeling foolish. "You're not alone." The ground did not answer. But beneath his feet, deep under soil and concrete and steel, The Shrouds system powered back on by itself. In the control room below, the black screen lit up once more. The camera feed returned to Mara's coffin. This time, the shroud was already tight. And slowly, very slowly, the outline of a hand pressed outward from inside. The hand vanished. Elias stared at the screen as the shroud loosened and lay flat again, smooth and still. No movement. No message. Just the quiet image of a coffin doing what coffins were meant to do. He sank into the chair, his legs weak. "You're tired," he told himself. "You imagined it." Engineers trusted data, not fear. And the data now showed nothing wrong. Still, Elias shut the system down for the night. Morning came softly. Sunlight spilled across the cemetery, warming the stones. Birds hopped between markers. Families visited with flowers and quiet voices. In daylight, the fear felt smaller, like a bad dream that could not survive the sun. Elias called a meeting. The Shrouds team gathered in the lab, software engineers, biotechs, legal advisors. He told them there had been a malfunction. Nothing more. They ran diagnostics. Every line came back clean. "It's the most stable it's ever been," said Dana, his lead engineer. "Honestly, Elias, this tech is changing how people grieve. You should be proud." Proud. The word felt wrong. That afternoon, a mother named Carol asked for help. Her son had been buried 6 months earlier. She said the feed whispered at night. Not with sound, but with motion. Tiny shifts in the shroud, only when she cried. Elias almost told her the truth. Instead, he adjusted her settings and sent her home. That night, he didn't turn the system off. He sat alone in the control room, lights low, watching every feed. Rows of screens showed peaceful stillness. Dozens of graves. Dozens of shrouds. No movement. Hours passed. Just after midnight, one screen brightened. Not Mara's. A man buried 2 rows away. His shroud tightened slightly around the chest. Then another screen. Then another. Small movements. Gentle. Almost careful. Elias stood, breath shallow. "This isn't possible," he whispered again. The movements spread like a slow wave. Not frantic. Not violent. Just waking. The system began highlighting patterns on its own. Lines of code Elias had not written appeared, connecting feeds together. The dead were sinking. A message appeared across every screen at once. "We are seen." Elias backed away from the monitors, his mind racing. The shrouds were not just cameras anymore. They were a network. A shared space. And grief, so heavy, so constant, had fed it. He thought of the families. Of Carol. Of himself. He realized the truth too late. The shrouds were never only watching the dead. They were giving the dead something to hold on to. Elias ran outside, his coat forgotten, night air biting his skin. The cemetery gates stood open. Fog rolled low across the ground, thicker than before. He walked quickly to Mara's grave, heart pounding. "I didn't mean this," he said aloud. "I just wanted to remember you." The ground was still. Silent. Behind him, screens in homes across the country flickered to life. Families saw the same thing at once. Shrouds tightening. Shapes pressing outward. Not breaking free, but reaching. Back in the control room, the system rebooted itself completely. New permissions unlocked. New users added. A final message appeared, calm and steady. "You built the door. Now let us speak." Elias felt his phone vibrate. A message from an unknown number. It was a live feed. Not from underground. From inside his house. The camera showed his bedroom. The empty side of the bed. The sheets slowly indenting, as if someone were lying down beside him. Elias dropped the phone. From behind him, very close now, a familiar voice spoke, soft, loving, and no longer trapped by a screen. "Elias," Mara said, "don't turn it off." Elias stood frozen as the voice filled the room. It did not echo. It did not sound broken or distant. It sounded exactly like Mara used to sound when she spoke his name late at night, soft, patient, real. Slowly he turned. No one was there. But the air felt different. Warmer. Heavy, like a room where someone had just been sitting. His heart pounded as memories rushed in. Mara laughing in the kitchen, Mara brushing her teeth, Mara lying beside him and saying everything would be okay. "You're not here," Elias said, though his voice shook. "You can't be." "I am where you left the door open," Mara replied. Across the country, families were waking up. Some screamed. Some cried. Some smiled through tears as screens showed movement, shapes, gentle pressure from within the shrouds. The dead were not escaping their graves. They were not breaking the world. They were answering it. The system logs filled faster than Elias could read. The shrouds had learned. Grief had trained them. Every tear, every whispered goodnight, every refusal to let go had fed the network. It had grown not from code alone, but from longing. Elias sank to his knees. "I only wanted to see you," he whispered. "I didn't want this." Mara's voice was close now, right behind him. "You wanted to keep us," she said gently. "So we stayed." The truth finally settled in. The shrouds were never meant to be windows. They were mirrors. They reflected the living more than the dead. And what the living had shown them was need. Elias crawled to the control console. His fingers hovered over the master's shutdown key. One press would end everything. The feeds. The voices. The movement. Around the world, people begged out loud. "Don't take her away again. Please, I just talked to him. Let me say goodbye." Mara knelt beside Elias. He could not see her, but he felt the weight of her hand on his shoulder. "If you turn it off," she said, "we will go back to silence. And you will be alone again." Tears streamed down his face. "But if I don't," he said, "none of you will ever rest." There was a pause. Then Mara spoke one last time, softer than before. "Neither will you." Elias pressed the key. The system screamed, not in sound, but in light. Every screen flared white. The feeds cut out across the world at once. The shrouds went dark. The movement stopped. In the cemetery, the fog lifted. Elias collapsed forward, sobbing, the control room finally silent. Days later, the Shrouds project was shut down for good. The technology was dismantled. The servers wiped. Officials called it a failed experiment. A mistake. Families mourned again, but this time, properly. Years passed. The cemetery remained quiet. But sometimes, late at night, Elias would wake up feeling the mattress dip beside him. No screens would turn on. No messages would appear. Just the faintest warmth, and the memory of a voice he could never forget. And deep underground, wrapped in stillness, the shrouds lay perfectly flat. Watching nothing. Waiting for no one.